What's this I hear that Ozempic might have some competition?
Find out today on Medical History Mysteries.
So we know with pretty much everything, a 2.0 is going to come out, right? So it sounds like there's new Ozempic out there. What's going on with that?
Well, this is the world of medications that are used not only to treat type 2 diabetes, but also obesity. It started with a drug called Trulicity, and Trulicity was originally designed for the treatment of type 2 diabetes. But since modest weight loss was also encountered with the use of Trulicity, other drugs soon popped up that took advantage of that. And the next one up was semaglutide, which was marketed under two different names. It was marketed under the name Ozempic, because it was used to treat type 2 diabetes, but it's also marketed under the brand name Wegovy. And Wegovy is used specifically for weight loss. Okay, so it's dual patents for the same medication, two different brand names for the same medication, two different indications for the same medication. Well, it didn't take long for another company to introduce yet another drug called Mounjaro. Mounjaro is a little different than Trulicity and Ozempic in the way it works, but it does work to treat type 2 diabetes. And now Mounjaro has come out with its version of its drug that's used to treat obesity, and that's called Zepbound. And all that really means, I think, Pam, is more confusion on our part for those who aren't necessarily involved in pharmacology, because it's really the same drug, but under all these different brand names. As a matter of fact, Ozempic is also marketed under a third brand name called Rybelsus, which are oral tablets also used for the treatment of type 2 diabetes. But I think you might imagine that since Ozempic and Wegovy are injectable and Rybelsus is an oral tablet, people might decide to use Rybelsus, even though it's not indicated for that, as an oral tablet for weight loss. Haven't heard that yet. Not guaranteed, not anywhere in stone, but it just seems to me that that might be the case.
Wow. Okay. So that's so interesting. It's almost like kanji in Japanese. So you have like one symbol and it could mean two things. It just depends on what you're
Correct.
using it for. So, okay,
Correct.
I got it. What does that mean for us as dental professionals?
Exactly. What's the point, Viola, of giving me all this great information if you don't break it down to what it means to me, the dental professional? Well, realize that these drugs were and are used for the treatment of type 2 diabetes. So, of course, hypoglycemia is an ever-present threat, okay? Now, I'm not saying that it's even more than other drugs, but I'm saying it exists. It's the way the drugs are used, okay? So there are some people who do use Wegovy for weight loss, but there are a lot of people who use Ozempic for weight loss. But you said, no, Viola, that's Wegovy. Right, but they're using Ozempic. Why? Because Ozempic is easier to get. Ozempic is probably covered under their insurance, where maybe Wegovy is not, because Wegovy is considered cosmetic, and Ozempic is covered because it's useful for the treatment of type 2 diabetes. I can get it from a friend or a relative who got Ozempic prescribed because they have diabetes and they gave it to me, or they sold it to me. I bought it overseas. I bought it from Canada. I bought it from, another country because, I can get drugs imported from other countries. Or heck, I just bought it black market. So all I'm saying is whether they got it licitly or illicitly, that drug is still a drug that's used to treat type 2 diabetes. Hypoglycemia is always an issue. And if I'm using these drugs to lose weight, when it comes to weight loss, more is always better in some people's minds. So what if I'm using this drug, whatever, Ozempic or Wegovy or Rybelsus, and I'm also restricting my calorie intake? Well, I'm at risk for hypoglycemia even more. And all I've got to rely on now for energy stores is the glycogen in my muscles. Fine. Stick me now in a stressful situation and ask your patients what's one of the most stressful situations they can find themselves in, and they're going to say sitting in your chair. Well, guess what? Hypoglycemia is a very real threat here. So here's my question. How do you know if your patient's using these drugs if they're not necessarily using it under a physician's orders? What if they're using it black market, or they got it from their, Aunt Mary? Or how do you know this is going on when they won't necessarily want to tell you? Of course, the answer is you've got to ask. And it's about being as non-confrontational and non-judgmental as possible. You basically got to say it like this, like, look, in a way, I don't want to know what you're doing because whatever you're doing is your decision. But in a way, I have to know what you're doing because whatever drugs you're using may impact any one of the drugs I'm using in rendering dental care today, or actually interfere with my ability to render good dental care to you. So even though I don't want to know, I need to know. So just tell me. I'm not the police. I'm not the FDA or the DEA. I'm just here to give you good care. So just tell me everything. And it doesn't go anywhere but between you and I. It doesn't go anywhere else. I just need to know so that I can give you good dental care without causing you any harm. And
I
then,
like that.
and then stop talking. Let the dead air, the eerie silence draw the information out of them. Okay. Stop talking and let it hang there. And eventually you'll hear, well, and then you're on your way.
I love that. Well, that's really great advice. And just one comment though about the black market. So are they getting Ozempic black market, or are they getting fake Ozempic, or are they getting possibly a drug that could harm them that's not even Ozempic at all? What's going on the black market?
That's the risk you take whenever you buy a black market drug. I don't know. I mean, I've seen this happen over and over again where, it starts with, well, you bought counterfeit Ozempic, which means you got something that looks like Ozempic, but there was, whatever's in there is not Ozempic. It could be water, it could be whatever. Now, that can then go on to, well, you didn't get Ozempic, but you got something else, which was harmful to you. Or you didn't get Ozempic, but now you got this and it might kill you. So it always makes me worry when people buy drugs black market because I know what the impulse is, but the result may not be something they're even anticipating, and that's why people die all the time from taking counterfeit medications. So let's not make that happen. Call your doctor. Find out what options are available to you based on your insurance, and try to stick with legitimate sources because counterfeiting is so easy. If you ever compared counterfeit drug to the real thing, you'd be hard pressed to tell the difference between them in many cases.
That's really scary. Well, it's also really great advice. So thank you for that. And keep an eye out for these new drugs on the market. It seems like new ones are coming out all the time. So two more for us to keep in the back of our minds. So for Medical History Mysteries, we will see you next week.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.